So we're bringing back question of the week. It's been a while since we've done this, but I think we got a good one here lined up. Shout out to Changing Crisis, legend of the Fortnite community. He actually sent me this Reddit thread, and the question of the week this week is: who's everyone's pick for most overrated and underrated player in Fortnite history? Now, the person who did this thread, his name is Conzilla King. So shout out to Conzilla King. Basically, the point he was trying to get at was overrated. A lot of people sort of get overrated wrong sometimes. Like, I think for overrated, it's quite easy to pick, like content creators, right, who are overrated just because they're so popular, right? But he was like thinking back to people who, like, amongst knowledgeable people in the scene, so maybe people like us, amongst top level pros, like the people who people would always hype up and talk about, that you just feel were never actually that good, or they never delivered anything to suggest they are that good. And underrated is obviously a bit more straightforward. So I'll start off with what he said and who he picked as his overrated and underrated, and then I'll read some of the other replies people gave in the thread. And then at the end, I'll ask you guys for your thoughts. I got Resub in the building today. I got Boop and L in the building. So yeah, let's do this.
And also, before you like to go in there, you're also telling us.
Oh yeah, I'll give I'll give my own as well.
You're asking a potentially spicy question here.
No.
We're getting put in the comments.
We all got to get involved in this for sure. All right. He said, personally, overrated all time goes to Thomas HD.
Oh dear.
To get into some of what he said, I'll try to skim through this because he gave like 2 big paragraphs. But he said, I always see him rated top 10 of all time, which is crazy because 5 seconds without a win, is not as good as people like Poyo, who's obviously won a bunch now and doesn't maybe get put as high up as Thomas in all-time rankings. And for underrated, he went with Scented. He said, I think his career goes hugely forgotten. Even though he has a bunch of second places, like Thomas, and third at Invitational, doing well at Elan, and like the consistency of all of his placements, etc.
All right.
etc.
Boop, I want you to give your opinion whilst I count something.
Okay, so 2 + 2 = 4 here is essentially what we're saying, because you're putting Thomas HD as overrated, but Scented as underrated. But Scented has pretty much had, I feel like, the same career trajectory as Thomas, but minus the World Cup and the longevity that Thomas HD had as well, right? Like,
that's not what you said. You're misunderstanding.
You're misunderstanding. Putting them together, like on the same level, is
no. Yeah, so you're misunderstanding. Also, to caveat, he also did want to clarify: just because someone's overrated doesn't mean they're not good, or that it's not a measure of them being a lesser player. He's referring to how the public perception of that player is. Are they overrated or underrated? So you'd actually, what you just said there would be arguing in his favor, in the fact that like their results maybe look similar. Obviously they're not similar when you look deeper into it, but yet Thomas is rated so much higher than Scented is amongst all-time perception, right? So that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, okay, I can see that, but when you say someone's underrated, you're just basically calling them a piece of shit, like that's all you want. Because you mean what you're essentially saying is, like, you're saying they don't deserve the hype. You could say someone's underrated without saying that someone's overrated in this case. I would say I would disagree with that, because I've had this before in this podcast, and I do think that getting second place isn't as bad as people make it. And obviously, I think you guys disagree with me, saying like the winning moment, like you have to win in order to win, right? Like second place doesn't mean you didn't win. But I feel like second is like close enough in some of these circumstances as well. Losing by a point, losing at the land, considering what happened with Peterborough, like all of that feels to me that Thomas is accurately rated in terms of the overall discussions. Because like if you just had a different day or a different this or a different that, then he would arguably be one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when we're talking firstly about wins matter, I think that that's literally when you're talking about the best player of all time, because you're trying to say to be the best player of all time you have to have at least one, full stop. That like but when you're talking about you're looking at who's overrated and who's underrated. First thing, I wanted to go back and just check, just to compare like what are the actual results differences between these two people. They're almost exactly the same. Right, my sheet I've not updated for chapter 5 yet, so this is basically up until 2024. But at that point, Thomas had 4 seconds, and Scented had 5, and then Thomas had 5 thirds, and then Scented had 3. So, like, if you look at the placements, you could basically just be like, they're pretty much exactly the same. So to say, the actual comparison is quite good in almost a sense for the base of the question, where you say, well, Thomas is overrated and then Scented is underrated because they've essentially done the same thing, right? From the basic. Now, do I agree with the actual analysis? No, because I'm never going to sit here and say that the hype for Thomas HD makes him overrated when he's actually had the most banger placements of all time. As I think we've alluded to a few times here, if 1 or 2 of those were just first or seconds, totally different conversation. But like the actual consistency throughout the entire of his, from the start of World Cup all the way up till now, there's absolutely I'm not taking any Thomas HD slander. I'm not having it. I will not have it. Scented being underrated, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that either. Maybe he didn't have like the big he's not had like the massive hype. But I think when you expect him to come second every single tournament, like when he was on that streak, you're like, okay, well, Sented's coming second. That to me doesn't like say that he's going to be underrated whatsoever, because you're already expecting him to come one of the second best place in every single FNCS.
I feel conflicted around this because I don't my gut is telling me to disagree, but when you lay it out, like that, right? When you lay out the careers on paper, and just looking at the results, them being so similar, yet the perception of both of them being so different does suggest that one of them is overrated or one of them's underrated.
Correct.
Like it has to be, or both, right? Like there has to be one. Where maybe I think you have to go into a bit more detail and the results don't tell the full story. It's part of why Thomas, and I know I was pushing for this a lot last year. Part of why Thomas is rated so much more highly nowadays, I think, is because there's an understanding of like the longevity of what he's done. Like there aren't many people in Fortnite. There's almost nobody in Fortnite who you can compare to. Like, I remember last year when we talked about this, I highlight the fact that Thomas has been a top level fragger in Fortnite since 2019. And he's still considered a top level fragger to this day. Maybe, where you want to talk about end of 2025, how things are looking to you. So, all right. But there is literally nobody in Fortnite who can say that for as long as he has. And he has a bunch of great results. Not a win, sure. But, I agree with you, Boop, in terms of like sometimes, how we look at the difference between those maybe needs to be refined. Like I don't think Fortnite is the game where we should have as heavy of a ring culture as maybe some other games. Yeah. Especially with how tournaments and seasons and metas play out. But that's a whole bigger conversation. Scented, I think the thing that makes it hard for me for Scented is, again, if we're talking about like a player's USP, what's the thing you hype them for? What's the thing that they're good at? Scented sort of was rated off of his great results, but being this insanely smart IGL. Right, he was one of the smartest minds in the game, you would have said, during that period, right? I remember watching a Center stream where he's getting people asking him like, yo, like who are some of the smartest people? And he's like, he's like, yeah, I guess, you look at Queasy, and Tayson, myself, and it's like, he himself used to back himself as like this super smart guy. And so when that's your USP as an IGL, like you are smart and that's how you get your results. When that starts to fall off, and that starts to no longer become the case, you almost get looked upon harsher, especially when there's other IGLs who are still doing it, right? Like, Scented was really good with Cold, then he started playing with Dukes, and like the results were a bit mid, then he started playing with Clicks for a bit before the whole Clicks getting banned situation happened, and it was like, it just looked terrible. Like it felt like what happened to this like amazing IGL who was super smart, used to make all these amazing calls, right? And so I think for me, I'm going to say they're accurately rated. I'm going to say they're both accurately rated. That's where I think I fall on that.
And I think you made a very good point on what is each player's unique selling point, because if you get Thomas in a team, you've got someone who's actually not going to milk. Like, he's not just going to get put down. He's not going to be the first to die. He's going to have insane output. Like, he's going to top damage ratio. You know what he's going to do. And if it's
Right.
almost like I'm not going to team blame. It's almost like if you don't do good a lot when you've got Thomas on your team, you're probably just you to blame.
Right.
You're like, but say for Sented's perspective, obviously being the IGL, it's kind of similar where it's like if you're not in a good position, whatnot. But if you look at the history of his performances after trios and whatnot, yeah, he popped off with cold, as you said, but then his team options started to get worse and worse, and the placements also started to kind of be the same. Whether that was his own motivation for the game or whether or not his USP just wasn't necessarily as appealing or not.
Who did Scented lose FNCSs to? How many second places does he have in FNCSs?
He had 5 seconds.
5. So who did he lose to specifically? Because I feel like that also matters, right? It's like
I remember he lost to Acorn
racing
once.
driver in the world, but then
So
you're racing against Max Verstappen, right? And it doesn't matter, right?
let me tell you.
So Thomas, I think he lost to Malibuca Mustache. He's lost to obviously Prime Peterbot at Globals. Like those things matter. Like if you're in NA right now, you're getting second place to Prime Peterbot, underrated because you're fucking losing to the goat of all time. But if you're losing to like bums in those second places, then that kind of brings your performances down a little bit, right?
I don't think Scented was losing to bums, but like I do get what the argument you're making.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. So he started his first sec was in Chapter 2, Season 4, and he had 4 in a row, which is actually very funny when you actually think about it. So Chapter 2, Season 4 winner was Daymiro Reverse. Then it was Slacks Acorn Jack. Then it was Daymiro Reverse. And then it was Jukes Justice and Users. So those were the 4 and then he came second again in Chapter 3. And it was Season 2. And that was against Peterbot and Byla. So, maybe one of those.
Byla's bad work right there, man. I don't know. That wasn't even Prime P. I don't know, man. So
I watched that video.
Ones. I'll give it to that
he
one.
was primed. He was primed. He was pretty primed. I watched that VOD recently for a bit. He was actually kind of.
How good was OG Peterbot?
No, but that's part of one of my next videos.
That would be a good video. Yeah, could you scout OG Peterbot to be the GOAT? Yeah.
I'll read out some of the other ones. Let us know in the comments what you think on that one, because those were 2 names that came up a bunch in the thread. Thomas and Scented. Chipper YT said, I pick Muzz as underrated. He's consistently excellent, has high placements which seem to go under the radar, is the second best NA solo player over the last few years, but somehow struggles to find tier 1 teammates, rarely gets mentioned. Somebody else replied to him saying, Muzz is one of the few people to have won an FNCS on a minor region and a major region as well. Muzz is underrated. I think that's a good shout.
Perfectly rated.
Perfectly rated, I would say. So
there's a reason why he doesn't get teammates.
Yeah, I love Muzz. Muzz is my boy. We sat in Copenhagen and watched together from the stands. I know he knows my boy. He is an unreal solo player, but like most of his team placements have not been amazing. And like I don't think you can always just say that's to do with teammates. Like there's just a trend. Sure, he won FNCS in 2 regions, but after that, like since duos, like he's not at a top 5 since. I'm not sure this year. My sheet doesn't go into this year. I need to really get it updated. I don't think he has though from memory. So like. Muzz is the player to me where I've never really understood his impact in a team mode, because I always feel like he should be like, closer to like a Peterbot or Poyo style player in team modes because of how good he is individually, but maybe he's just not that. He doesn't have that big of an impact as some of those players do in team modes, which is unfortunate as a massive Muzz fan. So I think he's well rated.
Okay, that's a good shout.
If anything, I would maybe say overrated, because winning in OCE, no one gives a fuck about that. Let's be real,
Yeah, but I don't think.
Also, who gives a shit about solo victory cash cups as well?
I do. I think that I actually do care about
Muzz
solos.
was also good in solos before that. It's not like that's he's just always been a good solo player or performed well in solos. Another one underrated for me is undoubtedly Janice. His career was genuinely insane and spanned across so many eras. It's just every time there was always someone on a better run.
I mean, that is actually, I think that's a fair take for underrated, because Janice has got a lot of massive accomplishments. He's still a really good player. Of course, a lot of his placements over the last year haven't been as good generally, but like if you look at the highlights that he's had, he's won a solo DreamHack, he won a duos, he's won trios, he's won a lot. He's won a solo FNCS as well.
He's won solo, duo, and trio.
Solo, duo, trio, and a DreamHack LAN. Yeah. So like he has a lot of really big accomplishments. I actually think that's definitely a valid underrated take. I will take that 100%.
I think he suffers a lot from like the thing we almost mentioned with Centered, where it's like when you are an IGL and your results start to get poor because,
Yeah.
let's be real, like for his standards of a player, his results have just been poor over the past like 2 years now. Yeah, you start to just get more and more underrated.
There was also the FNtasia played with Noah this year from Mask. I think it was maybe the first season.
Yeah,
and his
the one
teammates were going crazy, and they were like below surge every game, and he was kind of. I remember he was moaning about like rotations or something like our zones, like max north zones or whatever. And then that same season was on NA from the exact same drop spot. And I'm like, I remember we were watching it, and it was always like just them in bad spots and below surge, which to me would be an IGLing issue. So I don't know. I don't know what's been going on really lately, but I think he's I still stand by. Definitely underrated.
If you've been a Boop enjoyer, you know at some point I've said that Giannis was like in the GOAT debate like 2 years ago, right? Like solo, duo, trio, FNCS, like he's very, very good. So I think like 3 years ago, I say would he be underrated because no one even mentioned it when you talked about the GOAT debate 2 to 3 years ago. Nowadays, I would say I agree with maybe slightly on the overrated side, considering like the blast placements with Flixie, uncontested, the train station with not Prime Flixie, but like Flixie right before he won FNCS, right? Like he like had a shocking performance with them, and then the last few IGL. But he is back in the up and up though. He's been showing up more on the recent leaderboards with Rax right now. So maybe Prime Giannis is back. He won an FNCS in duo. So but yeah, I do think he's underrated in terms of like the original discussions from before.
Yeah, that definitely Giannis is a bit underrated, at least when you talk all-time conversations.
Yeah.
Someone said, if we're talking about all of Fortnite history, Tfue has to be one of the most overrated, right? He was viewed as the best player in the world in an era where that just meant having a lot of viewers and pub stomping. As soon as tournaments as we know them started being hosted, he fell off a cliff and couldn't do shit without getting carried.
I actually feel this is valid. And I think I say this is valid as someone who does not care much for early performances, right? I've said this a lot on this podcast and a lot in different places. Like, I think like people who say in the first year of Fortnite and like Fortnite tournaments who are like dominating at the time, right? A lot of those were just like people who had good gaming experience, like shooter knowledge from other games. Just, maybe they had great aim already, and then they transferred that into Fortnite, and where you're playing against a lot of people who don't have that experience already, and you're just already so far ahead. And then as time goes on, you see a lot of these people like, not being able to keep that distance, right? And they fall behind. And I think, for Tfue, obviously he was so crazy so early on, and he was amazing. But that's because he has such a like big backing of, gaming history and talent from before that. And then as this thing started to get more competitive, like, yeah, you could see him, even I think near World Cup, like you could see his mechanics being far behind. And that's 2019, and then, moved on after that. Not right after that. He stayed until Chapter 2. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with overrated purely because I don't want to say respect. That's not the right word. I don't appreciate people who did really well super early into Fortnite. Personally, I just don't value it that highly.
I don't think many people had. I don't remember that period, but I don't think many people rated him like super highly on the competitive side. It was more the glazing of like how quickly he could pick up random quirks and like mechanics within the games, right? Like every time the discussion comes around TV, it's like, wow, this guy's insane at exploiting this glitch, doing this type of peak. His aim is disgusting. But I think on the individuality scale for like competitive, I don't think anyone really put him that highly, at least from my personal remembrance in that case. So I guess if people did highly rate him on the competitive side, I would say sure he's overrated. But I do think he was like a pioneer in terms of like various mechanics and things and early on in Fortnite, and that deserves its flowers as well.
100%. I think he was highly rated in World Cup though. Would you disagree with that, Levin? Like, I surely coming into World Cup finals, I feel like everyone was expecting him to like top 10, top 5. Top 10,
Yeah.
I think but like by the time World Cup hit, he wasn't considered like, but like at that time, like people had started jumping on the hype of like Stompy, Shinken, Benji, Savage. Like a lot of other guys were getting a lot more flowers for being like better players because it was like Mongrel was like almost at his peak rating. So back then, the hype of him as a player had started to fall off a bit just because you could visibly tell like he was a bit behind some of those like younger kids. But before that era, like before the run of going into World Cup, he was rated quite highly. And Boops is right in that he was like very much a pioneer. he was just rated in like the way the guy sort of described of like he was like one of the more popular streamers. Everyone's watching him. He would figure out cool stuff and have like these different things he'd figure out. You know, there's a reason why people still call it a bloody Tfue peak. You know, so it's like you know, you do got to give him his flowers, but he definitely was overrated. Like I would go as far as to say there might be people listening to this who maybe were watching Fortnite back then, and in their mind they remember a time where he was considered the best player in the world. I can confidently say there was never a time he was the best player in the world.
That's fair.
He might have just been the best player who had an audience at a certain time. That probably might be right. But like, I remember there was a time when people were saying he was like the best in the world, and like I'm watching fucking Mitro dropping like 50 bombs solo squads, and I'm like, Turner ain't doing that right now, bro. But yeah, shout out to Tfue, man, because he you know, he's an OG. Gotta love Tfue. Changing Crisis himself. We'll do one more. Changing Crisis himself. He said,
before you say, this is going to be a valid take. Changing Crisis got some heat. This better be a valid take.
Okay. We'll start with his underrated. He said for underrated, Trulex and Chicha. Didn't even put an explainer. He just said Trulex and Chicha.
You don't need to explain that, bro. That's facts.
People still don't know Trulex won an FNTS.
It's crazy.
I didn't ever talk about it. Wait, he won an FNTS? Yeah, he carried Prime Queasy. I don't know about Prime Queasy, but
not Prime Queasy. Just before Prime Queasy and Prime Jerky.
Does that mean he won an FNCS as fragger Trulex?
You weren't really fragging.
Or does he support
like
Trulex, you know?
Like, yeah.
You weren't really game back then, I can't lie.
You weren't really fragging back then.
Him and Queasy's duos from like, you know, the few seasons before, and they were keying. They got into some scraps, man.
That
like,
was, I remember that was sniper meta. They were really good on the sniper when they got second. That was the first interaction I ever had with Queasy Trulex, because I was VOD reviewing their second plays, and they were just carrying heavy sniper shooting at motherfuckers near Holly edges.
Yeah, I remember because I watched it for a recent video, and I remember watching that, and I was like, imagine in the big 2025, you see Queasy and Trulex doing. You're not thinking they're keying in a lobby, you know, in a grand final.
Hey, everybody grows up someday, you know.
Exactly.
They were a lot younger back then. His overrated is an interesting one for me. For overrated, he says only one player can hold this title, and it has to be Stretch. Literally every pro he ever played with went on to do better things after they stopped playing with him. He finished 50th with Commandment, which might be what might be the lowest points tally in an FNCS history. Can you go back and check that? I don't know how many points he got.
He did come 50th. I will check the leaderboard right now.
And then he said only for Commandment to go on to win FNCS the following season, with another one of Stretch's ex-teammates in Avery. He held back every single pro he ever played with. He also talks the most shit, which is the same achievement. He also took the most shit of any pro I've ever seen, when his biggest achievement was winning a solo DreamHack online tournament, which is the same achievement as Marzo W's strays, I guess.
Dang!
He got hyped up massively to never come close to winning anything of note, even with Zate's gatekeeping talent and denying practice with Stretch and all that. The guy was genuinely awful.
That's some heat. Firstly, I want to confirm they did get 8 points.
Holy crap.
In Chapter 3, Season 2.
Jesus.
I can't remember. That was the one that Peter bought in Battle 1. I can't remember if that was a 2-day event. It's 6. No, it was 12 games. So less than 1 point average per match. That's
8
pretty rough.
points.
8 points
in 12 games.
Yeah, I think I could get more in the grand final.
100%.
Hard to cap in the chest. Like if I tried to, I probably could get more than 8, I think.
It depends. If I was trying to do as good as possible, maybe. But if I was trying to get 9 or 10 points, then I feel like I could muster up some.
Yeah, true. I feel like if you were just trying to play it normally, no. But if you would
see what I mean? Yeah.
I'm capping the chest on Queasy or Trulex or something.
Right.
I'm gonna get that kill.
So
what do you think of that?
Man, I don't think the one thing I was thinking about while listening to this unreal slander was I'm not sure that Stretch was rated that highly to have this level of slander. Or am I?
You don't know, bro. You don't know.
No,
you don't know, bro. Stretch, like,
let me know.
Like, Stretch. There's like a couple players like this that I can think of where like they talk a good game, and so like they get rated really high. I'm sure in the comments people will let me know. Like, I'm sure if you speak to any pro, like there's just, you ever speak to a pro and they just talk about a certain player mad highly, and you're like, that guy's never done really much. But like Stretch was rated very high. Like you talk back then, any top player, if you ask them who are like the best players in NA, like they're gonna mention Stretch. Always.
Okay.
Like, always.
I know some of the devious stories of his beefing off spawn, which I literally cannot share on this podcast because it will not be allowed to be uploaded. So you know, I'm maybe based on those, he's given himself the reputation. I mean, I guess if we're going with that level, I guess I'd probably have to agree. There's not been a huge amount of actual like impressive placements from him to start with. Like he started obviously playing with Zayt and Saf towards the end of like their careers, you know, like he's playing with him in Chapter 2, Season 4 and 5, and they did okay, you know, but they had to qual through the reboot round, if you remember, like the crazy reboot round they had in the second, and then they ended up placing 8th that season. They ended up doing fine the season after. It was a top 3, but that's then like his best placement individually in an FNCS was 3rd. And then there was a lot of like good around top 5 placements, but yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not as much of a ball knower on the NA East Stretch hype knowledge, but I'd have to agree, I guess.
What I would say, and this I feel like this is relevant to all the discussions we've had so far. There's one thing being good at the video game, and there's another thing being perceived as being good at the video game. And what Stretch had was infinite aura, right? Once you have that level, like we call it the TikTok hype nowadays, right? Like with like Shark or whatever these guys, right? Like your marketing in this game matters way more than your actual skill level, right? If people have the perception of someone being good, that matters a lot more. In the case of Stretch, I don't know. I don't subscribe that much to NAEs, especially back then. I'm a lot more tapped in these days, but I mean, if you got 50th, you got 9 points. Fuck it, overrated.
Oh, it was 8. It was 8.
Yeah, sorry, 9. Yeah. Oh my god, 8 points.
8 would have been crazy. Yeah,
that would have been an improvement.
He did have like a consistent 2 years, right? Of placements. There was a lot of like top, like a 5th, 4th, 8th, 3rd, 4th, 6th, and then an 8th in duos. So like he did have a consistent like Chapter 2, but nothing incredible.
As a stretched enjoyer, this one was it was almost hard for me to read, you know, because I was a big fan of Stretch back then. Because there is definitely like a disconnect of sometimes there are players who are like really good and really smart, and they just don't get the results maybe to match it, you know? Like, I think for most people who watched him back then, or who would have watched Booga when he was playing with Booga, and so you're hearing his comms and seeing him play, like you would say, like you couldn't not watch Stretch and be like, this is like a good Fortnite player. But I guess, yeah, like looking back on it in hindsight, he probably was a bit overrated because he just, you know, a lot of he played with good players, you know, it's like he did, you know, when you look at some of the results, you can't be like, he never played with good players. He had great teammates because he was rated as a good player. Never quite cracked on, I guess, and got like some of those bigger results or big FNCS wins. So
I would have been interested in seeing if he stayed and continued to play, like what would his trajectory have been?
Probably not good, because I think at a point the results just start to catch up, you know, and you're just not doing good, you know. I think
that 8.50th was the last FNCS or last FNCS Grands he played, at least. Anyways, I don't know if he like
played other things. Yeah,
maybe that was just the end of the run.
I didn't realize that so many of his ex-teammates had ended up going on to win FNCS and NA. That does make it look worse as well.
Do you know how much of a hate watch this is from Crisis? Is that he's gone through and been like, man, Stretch is overrated. So then he's looked at all the previous teammates and be like, this guy's won this, and connected the dots. Like you know,
that's kind of crazy when you think about it like that, I guess.
I feel like there's one person that's quite similar to that, right? Chap, OG Chap. I feel like he was that would be my personal pick of overrated a little bit. I don't think that guy was that good back then. I don't know.
Vivid might come for you now if he hears this.
I might, know? Yeah.
I mean, is Vivid on your list as well?
Vivid was overrated, bro. Dude, fuck that guy. Nah, Vivid was the carry. Vivid was the carry.
Okay, who would be your underrated pick then, Boop?
Underrated. Let me think. So there's obviously current underrated players and there's historical underrated players. I don't know, man. I mean, my go-to pick would have always been Giannis or Julix, just because obviously like but there's already been mentioned. I mean, do you have someone that's on the top of your mind while I think?
So this is not an underrated player, but I'm saying this, but I think the perception isn't good enough. But I think Swizzy actually doesn't get like the flowers he deserves yet.
I think
Maybe after
get that.
globals.
I think now
Yeah,
he's
you know what I
starting to
mean?
get it, but
Yes.
before I know what you mean. Yeah,
You know me.
yeah.
I've been a Swizzy enjoyer for a long time. I've been saying this for quite some time. But I feel like he's not had the hype that he probably should have had as a player. Maybe outside, like the biggest hype you think he's had was doing well in the solo cash cups. Like that's probably like the when people were talking about him the most.
No.
Do you think that we could classify Queasy as underrated because everyone thinks he's shit because his mechs aren't that good?
Somebody in the thread had him overrated, and I was like, "What?"
Okay, well, that's no.
Again, the TikTok marketing, bro. I'm telling you.
Like, there's players out there who are like Fred, for example, right? There's players who aren't like flashy or whatever, but they get slandered because they don't look like visually watching their gameplay. It's almost like a nerf to their perception. It's like you just forget about all the other things that they do incredibly well. And I feel like Queasy and Fred on EU specifically are the two players who like almost they're not underrated, so I'm not calling them underrated, but it's almost like they should be appreciated more because they're almost like slandered for the way their gameplay looks.
Wait, when was this posted, Levin?
This was not long ago, like a week ago.
Okay,
8 days ago.
I could see why they could say that Queasy is overrated if they've been watching him play solo cash cup because he's not been having fun in solo cash cups, right? Like it has been a traumatic experience for him. So maybe that's why the saying overrated there. But nah, Queasy's definitely underrated. People just need to realize, mechanics don't mean anything. The person maybe that's a good one to think of as underrated. I have two. One, I think, was Jerky's performance when he won FNCS with Trulix and Queasy, because like he was literally integral to winning FNCS in that last game, right? You might not say like it obviously someone's performance throughout the whole tournament is quite important, but like the individual players also matter there. So like they wouldn't have won FNCS if he didn't
people always say Jerky was the worst ever winner.
I don't think
no way.
He was also just a very good player. I think he was just
he was crazy.
He was young. He was very young back then.
He was
like
cracked
14. Now he's like a jacked out steroided guy now on Marvel Rivals.
Now he's winning events in Marvel Rivals.
Yeah, he's qualified to the $1 million land, bro. We're so talented, all of us. And then the other person I thought that might be an interesting one, and don't say I'm farming because there's no calm anymore, but Savage, I feel like low-key is underrated a lot as well in terms of like how good his individuality is as a player. Because if you look at the options he always gets, especially now in duos, he's not getting many. And a lot of people use the excuse of him streaming for like, oh, this guy isn't that good anymore, blah, blah, blah. But like his past few runs, at least if you watch him actually play, I'd say he's definitely underrated in terms of how good he is. And it's funny that TikTok marketing works in one way for some people, but the fact that he has so much content of him moves in the other direction and makes people think he's not very good for some reason, which is interesting.
Honestly, I agree with that. And maybe I'm gonna be seen as a savage glazer, but
I mean, bro, you at his event, bro. Is that content?
Yeah, no, but like I do think that like he has been so good for so long. It's almost like when you look at clicks and you sort of like go like, how is he still so good? And he's been doing it so long, And Savage is just the same where like he's really good, and he's unfortunate that he's been playing in EU, a region where it's just like him being a streamer also just has not helped his career, from a competitive side. Obviously, right? But like on a competitive level, him being a streamer is like really probably weighed him down in a lot of different ways. So no, I think that's a good shout.
I also think the Savage, like, I think with those things, like maybe less with clicks now, but with Savage, I feel like most people don't have the expectation that he's going to win an FNCS. Obviously, there's the Savage calm and their fans who will, right? But like, I feel like most people don't have too delusional of like a thought process of how good Savage is. He's like a top player in the region. Like a top 10, top 5 would be like a really good placement in a Grands. So I feel like, the fact that he's been around for so long and achieved so much across that career, it's like he's adequately rated placement wise, but almost like career wise, maybe underappreciated. So yeah,
I think his career is underappreciated because Savage also just won like the all-time eye test players. Like you just watch him, you're like you just know you're watching a good Fortnite player. You know,
player,
like you can just see it. It's not.
What's
anyone could understand
Savage's best teammate in history? Like, who's like the best player?
Tayson. He played with Tayson back in 2021 or
2005. Yeah,
with eye drop in trios.
Low key, I mean, eye drop, Tayson, and Savage. Like, if you put them in their primes, or like Al playing at their best, that's a cook of a trio. Like,
I mean, that trio should have cooked. Like back then, that trio should have been insane. But like the vibes were just terrible. Like it was just a toxic working environment.
Oh yeah,
Tayson came off of playing with Savage and Metro to play with those is like two toxic environments in a row, but for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
Who would I go with as my overrated and underrated? I think for overrated, it's tough. Like I want to. I'm trying to think back to just like people who were like people really, really like were bigging up. Who I'm just like, I don't know. I think somebody whose career by casuals definitely gets overrated just because of like content creator impact, which I know isn't what we're bigging up here. Like we're trying to go a bit niche than that, but I think Mongrel was getting mad overrated back when he came back to the game. Like I remember that time, like everyone was like, "Oh my god, but promote Prime again, Prime Mongrel back," you know, which is why I think is good because like over the course of this year, I think it's like the hype has died down to where people are aware of his like level now, and he's actually been on the rise. Like he's actually just been getting better. So maybe that's not the greatest one. I don't think that like I don't think that's necessarily the best pick. All time overrated. It's hard. It's hard. Who did you have? Did you guys have anyone? Yeah, did you?
I've not come up with a good overrated because it's too mean.
I feel like you can do overrated for like people's FNCS wins. Like you're like, okay, this performance was like overrated in this FNCS, or this win wasn't as good as people make it out to be, but not like over a career trajectory. I don't think I can say someone's overrated. I don't know.
I'm looking through like FNCS wins on EU, and I just don't see any of these that were like. I know. I'm scrolling the list though. I just don't see any of them where I'm like,
you know what,
that was a bad performance.
I do have an overrated that people are not gonna like, but I actually do have an overrated.
I think I know what you're about to say.
What do you think I'm about to say?
You go first.
My overrated would have to be Shark.
Oh,
I don't know if that's fair yet.
That's
no,
okay. I see that. Fair. But like he's only overrated if you're 11 years old, you know, and you don't.
But that's the problem. Like, but my thing is like so, and I'm gonna say and
my fucking Middle East duo, man.
Shout out to Shark. Yeah, no, shout out to Shark because Shark's actually like cool, you know, like he's actually and he's a young kid, you know, so I don't want to be like crushing a young kid, right?
We'd win FNCS
but
together, yeah.
As somebody who I think I was actually the first person to make like content hyping Shark up, like analysis hyping him up, right? So I'm not, you know, I respect him as a player. Like I think he's a good player, but Shark like blew up too quickly. Shark got good at the time where everyone was trying to find the next Peterbot, and so everybody made him out like the next Peterbot, and he was crazy good in 1v1s and creative and all these things, and he was decent in game, but people put him on a level that he was not ready for. And so you saw that with like the whole like teammates thing, trying to get better teammates. And it's like, how come Shark can't find a better team? It's like, no, that's not how this is supposed to go. You look at like the other kids who like come up and are cracked. They have their come up and they're cracked, but they stay with their like shitty, you know, teammate / friend for a while until they have that one pop of performance in an actual grand. And then they graduate to having like the actual like tier 1, tier 1.5 players starting to play with them. Shark like tried, I say tried, I don't think he actively tried, but through just the hype of the community, skipped that phase and it just didn't work out for him. And you saw like he ended up in like the slums of teammates for a bit.
So what you're saying is he needs to win an FNCS with Byla and then he's going to be able to play a Bugha after that.
Maybe not that far because that's a challenge, you know. But like,
he
Shark. I don't know who Shark was. I can't remember who was Shark playing with back then. But whoever he was, he
He
needed
was
to
playing
keep
with
playing the players on
Pugzowski.
that level.
It's Shark and
He-
Pugzowski, I think, playing
he-
duos.
He needed to just keep playing with people on that level for a bit longer before he started getting put in other conversations, I reckon.
That's just the Boop effect was just too strong there, bro. Like,
yeah, I guess so, man. Just
unfortunately,
hyping up these kids. For my underrated,
I see that though.
And then for my underrated, I'm gonna go with Vanya.
That's very valid too. Super valid.
Good pick. Yeah.
Vanya was, for a lot of chapter 4 and like chapter 3, Vanya was one of my favorite players just as a commentator because he was so fun to watch. He was playing with Kami back then, just mad solo clutches, mad hype moments where like he's just in a bad spot. Me and Shio are like taking the piss, thinking, yeah, he's dead soon. Just bang, 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 popping off. And then obviously the thing we used to say back then is be sick if he was playing with someone better than Kami, and then he ends up playing with someone better than Kami in Swizzy, and then they go and win. So yeah, I'd say Vanya for me.
I remember we were in the broadcast, amount of times he was like, this guy's just fucking cheating, mate. He's just cheating his ass.
No, bro, bro, people don't know how good Vanya was back then.
Yeah.
Like, people just think of him as like the IGL now who's carrying along with fucking Marius and that, but Vanya was hitting bangs back in the day, bro.
There was one of the shows that we were doing in chapter 3. I remember, I think it must have been like a qualifier or semis. I don't think it was grands. And there was like an end game where he hit just shot after shot every max. And I remember you and Shia were casting it, and I remember we were just looking at each other once it happened, just like, guy's cheating, man. Cheating bastard. There's no way. No, he's just nuts, bro. He's just insane.
Yeah, shout out to Vanya, man.
As our Swizzy says, Vanya goat. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Did you guys have your? I'm not letting you guys cop out. Like I need a name from both of you.
I don't know who I think. I've been as I've been saying this, I've been like scrolling through FNCS winners and like people who have played. It's really difficult to pick someone overrated because I feel like every time I look back through most of their placements, I feel like. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like most of these people who've won an FNCS have been well rated.
It's usually not going to be the people who've won an FNCS though that are overrated, it's going to be people.
I thought one of those would stick out. Let me look through the most recent FNCS leaderboard and see.
So I'll go with my pick, and this is one I've said a lot, but I don't think it's like an individual person, but like just an individual performance. I just think like Stark season win for Mongo and Mitro Tayson, I think was overrated in terms of like how highly people rate that specific tournament or the individual performance in that tournament. Just because like that tournament was like if you had infinite shockwaves, infinite weapons, infinite 200 pumps, like of course you're gonna dominate in the way that you did, right? Like it's kind of like talking about Peterbot in Grim season. Like that was just so crazy. Like they were obviously individually very well, but like the win wasn't as good as everyone makes it out to be, as like Prime Mongrel, Prime this, Prime Mitro, because of how strong the fucking POI was at that point. So I'd say that individual performance there, I would say is slightly overrated. But at the same time, they also got that spot uncontested because they were so good at fighting, right? Until they were contested at the end by the Dutchies or whatever was the French.
It was the Dutchy, the Dane boys, and they beat them 4-0 off spawn when they calmed up. Well, 3 off spawn, then they dipped, and that put them from 15th all the way up to 3rd for Thomas HD team.
But yeah, they did have the spawn fighting aura, but
next vid, that's in the next vid right there. There you go. You're also correct that they also, as soon as they got conned in that drop spot, they basically got absolutely wiped the floor with for a while. And the question I pose in that video, because it's talking about mythics and big drop spots and stuff like that, is if they were contested the whole time, they don't win, like just straight away. But
they were good at the start of the year, though. That was the reason why they got it uncontested, right? They were beating Marine and the Dutch to spawn pretty well. So there's a reason why they were uncontested, but I think like the overall, the scope or the vision of Stark season win, I think people are like, wow, that was like the best fucking performance of it. I don't think so, in my opinion.
I agree. All right, actually let you go, Liv.
You got one? No, I was just going to add, I can't believe I forgot about this guy, but I think I forgot because I successfully hated on him to a point where he's no longer rated. And I was going to say Epic Whale. But Epic Whale doesn't even get hyped anymore. And I take pride in my battle and winning that battle.
I always see fucking Epico getting hyped, bro. I can't lie.
Oh, he still does.
I still fucking hear it,
the
man.
job's
Too
the
much.
job.
I'm taking over the fucking mantle,
I
bro. Don't worry.
must reascend.
I mean,
okay, yeah, okay. So one I would say that I've just not seen it yet. That's had so much potential. This might be a controversial take, 'cause I know it's your boy Levin, but potentially Omzo. Is this a valid take? Because
ooh.
he is nuts. You watch him play, but then I look at the results. I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. For a guy who was hyped up for so long, just ain't seen it, man.
You're killing me here. Nah, you know what? Again, I think that's like to give you guys a sports example. It's almost like any basketball fans like someone like Tracy McGrady, you know, or you know, someone like if you're a football fan, someone like Harry Kane before he left to go to Bayern and start winning shit. It's like a player who you watch who's like they're good. They're obviously good, but they just haven't won the thing yet, or they've not, you know what I mean? They've not come close enough to the thing yet. So yeah, I get it. But for me, that's why it's hard for me to call those players overrated though. Because I also don't think Iomzo is like, is he that rated? Like, do people talk about him that highly to where you would say his lack of all those wins makes him
No,
overrated?
I feel like there's a period in chapter 5, you know, and when he's playing with Rise and stuff, where it was like, okay, he's the hot shit. He's on the come up and things like that.
Yeah.
And good placements. But that's what I think. That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of players are so equally rated, and even Iomzo, I'm saying phenomenal player, and I think he probably is very well rated at the minute. But I feel like he had the aura of like the next up, big next hot shit.
They call him the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when he was playing with Clicks and Higgs, he was like, people were like, wow, he's like the best player in the name right now, like of how well he was doing. But I don't know.
I mean, he was performing at that level, you know?
Yeah, he was. He
so
was
it's like
that
doesn't. And it's hard. I feel like people. It's always hard with overrated. I feel like you're truly overrated when it's like the perception of you is at a level and you are not matching that level. And I don't know if the perception of him has ever been at a level where he's not been matching it. Because when people thought he was next up, it's because he was having the performances of a next up player. Whether he actually went to the next up or not, different thing, you know. Which is
I'm
hard.
still living in those times where
if we're trying to throw out names, it's hard. Let us know in the comment section below who you guys think is
hate watch in the comments down below.
You guys both copped out a little bit, but that's fine.
Well,
I told that Prime Mongrel. That was
after I did it, you know, but that's fine.
I feel like I've gone through the list and I'm like looking at people and I'm like, oh well, I mean. Actually, wait. I'll type this in our chat. Just it'll be obvious why I'm not saying that. But
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. That's not good.
But that one's different, you know. That's like again, that's one of those ones where it's like a player who's rated because they have fans who rate them, not because they are actually rated amongst top level players or people like us, you know. Because I'm sure there are players who we have overrated at some point.
Never.
You know? We just no. There's definitely been players who like we just end up overrating, whether that be because you know we watched them a bunch of that guy's crazy, and then they just.
Oh, I know. Actually, I know.
Who?
You remember? I mean, I know a certain person that wasn't here that said that someone was going to be like the fucking future. A certain duo was going to be a future. Wasn't it Harry saying that Harris and Skivi were going to be like the fucking best duo in EU at some point?
Oh yeah, I mean, he I don't think he ever went that far, but he did big them up a bunch. But I guess in like the case of like Harris, like he ended up doing good and going to globals.
Okay, could you say this one hurts? Could you say then, because I was just taking Harry's takes, is Toyota overrated?
Yes.
That's, you know what? Maybe that's a good shout, right? Because
Toyota, Alex King,
every small region. No, I mean, like when it was it's like he's one of those players where obviously on Asia he is just the boss. But when I look at it's a tricky one to say, because when you say he went to globals, right, and you go, there's a bit of a not a great performance out of them. It's hard to say if he is overrated individually from that, because you're like, is he the one that's not performing, or is this his teammates and his team, his trio generally just not up to the standard of, like a global level, like top placing team? Because obviously when, the globals before, everyone was saying, man, this guy's the truth, his teammates dog shit. I like, is that still the case this year? And now there's not, from the previous
I struggle
year.
to call any of the smaller region goats overrated, just because I feel bad for them and I feel like they're so handicapped,
We love
but no,
Toyota
that's a decent shout. Yeah, because Toyota does have crazy hype. It's like, again, it's why I mentioned Shark. It's like when people do the whole like Asian Peterbot thing, it's like, okay, but we're talking about the best Fortnite player ever here. So how good is this guy if we're saying he's that, so I do get it. That's a decent shot. Look, that segment was much longer than I thought it'd be, but it's fine. Shout out to overrated and underrated Fortnite players. Last week, Epic made some changes. They were experimenting with Storm Surge. They decided to finally experiment with Storm Surge. We've been talking so much on this show about the problems around the current Storm Surge system because of Surge trading and the sort of evolution of that in the meta over the past 2-3 years. And so they said, hey, we're testing an update to Storm Surge. It will change from total damage dealt to net damage dealt. In performance evaluation cups from October 2nd, for clarification, the only damage that counts as damage dealt / taken between players who aren't downed. Players' net damage will count through the entire game, even after being eliminated or rebooted. They tested this in performance evaluation. To give you the long story short, it was whack. I know you made a video about it, Reese.
It was whack.
Talking about it.
Yeah.
Give us the cliff notes of like why it was whack for you, and then if you have any thoughts on what's next.
So, firstly, awesome that Epic's trying stuff with Storm Surge. Super pumped. This was not it. We all thought this was it. I mean, when I've had discussions with people from Epic and whatnot, and one of the things I've always said is I don't think net damage itself works because there's too many exploits, but there's ways you can change it. We'll come back to that in a second. So what ended up happening, and one of the main reasons why it didn't really work that well, was firstly RNG dependency. So one of the games I watched in that video was the game that Chino and Vino, it's a fun duo to name, I must say, won, and it pulled to the east zone, and they're dropping it. What's that drop spot? The city in the east. That's just changed. I can't remember. City in the east, wherever it is. The place they'd the Vino's drop, where Vino and Chino are landed. Utopia. Thank you. They drop at Utopia zone, like 5th zones in Utopia. The whole game they are sitting on top of Utopia, and they're getting the freest tags of all time. Chino's got a like 5.5 damage ratio through the match, just farming tags on people. Whereas all of the people who are on complete max zones and have to rotate are getting stuck by everyone holding them in. So it really benefits the teams who pull zone, and it really doesn't benefit you if you pull like a completely far zone. The other way that you also could basically get over it, which I didn't see too many people do, maybe it was just because it was only a 4-game tournament. I know this happened way more on NA, which was get some damage and then literally do nothing. So, you needed an EU on average to get to the 10th zone, Storm Surge, you needed over 238 damage. So, like above positive, right? So, obviously, you lose damage when you take it because it's net. So, in an instance, right, in a hypothetical, if you sneak on a team and you 3-2-1 them, that's 200 damage. Assuming you don't take any in return, you full tarp away, sit in zone for 10 minutes, and then rotate in late, getting some tags as you go, potentially, and whatnot, right? Like, there's a lot of just ways where you can really just abuse that system. And obviously, the whole point of Storm Surge is to make players play more aggressive.
To make more action.
Exactly. You got to get something to watch. You don't want them all boxed up. But this actually forced players to be even more passive, because once you have some damage, there's no incentive to do much more. So those were, I would say, the biggest flaws. Boop, I know you said you actually enjoyed it, but from memory, you said you enjoyed it because everyone who was late rotating was fucked and it was fun to watch. That's I don't know if that's a great. I don't know if that's a great.
Those one my exact words. I do think the do damage early game and then box up is a little bit disingenuous in terms of like how it actually plays out, because like if you do that and you do 250 damage above, and you just box the whole get, and you get pumped on the fucking rotate, then you're cooked. You know, like so you are still incentivized to shoot at people and to shoot at people on rotates and to hold people, stuff like that. So I don't think it fully plays out exactly like that for a lot of teams. Some do, obviously, if you put every single zone, you know, maybe that's like 3 or 4 different duos in the lobby. The reason I think it's fun to watch is one, the specific storyline of watching a team that's like on edge for surge and seeing them like shoot at someone, hide, and then you got like the rat race of multiple teams trying to do this makes it super tense. Like we were watching a game with Naku, he was 7 above surge, he does a tag, he hides, and then he dips down again, he hits a shoot again, hides again. So that part I think is a little bit fun. It's more fun to watch in those situations. 2, I do think it allows for slightly different strategies, and it's I don't like when people say like, okay, this is much worse than Storm. I'd rather have Storm Surge trading. No, you wouldn't. Like at least something happens in the early game. Like a lot more happens in this new Surge than happens with Storm Staging Surge, right? Like people sit in the tower, sure, they're shooting at someone. Oh my god, someone can get knocked, but at least in this one, like people like again, it's a rat race. You shoot at someone, you run away from them. They're trying to chase you to get damage back with them. So there's a little bit more interaction. There's more room for failure in those senses. So I think that's why it's fun. The fact that people get fucked on a long rotate, not necessarily the reason why I enjoyed it, but it is fun to watch them see them scramble and like that the hopelessness and the life going out of their eyes as they realize that they're fucked because they had to reboot 5 times. But I do think the actual Storm Surge mechanic has potential. I think this is probably the right way to do it with a few tweaks akin to adding a bullet drop to make it hard for people to get punished on 4 rotates, or making AR damage be distance based. But I do like the idea of damage taken and damage given because it does solve the quintessential issue of Storm Surge trading. And I also think that Epic Games probably thinks the exact same way of, yo, we solved the issue. Whatever comes next, fuck it. Run it. So if I was a gambling man, I would say it's coming back, but they might have to fix a few bugs because it was very buggy in Eval Cup.
Yeah. I do think it is better in some ways. Like if you watch an FNtasia, so if you watch like an FNtasia Grand Finals and it was just this change and there was nothing else, I think the Storm Surge meta is probably better on a net than Surge trading because Surge trading is not fair.
On a net. See what you did there.
Yeah. Because Surge trading just is teaming, right? So anything that just removes the teaming aspect of it is a good, that's a net positive, right? Obviously, that does create some gameplay loops which are more frustrating. I think one of the biggest downfalls of it that we haven't discussed yet is the comeback ability of it, where if you are 3, 4, 500 below, right? Say you say you've just been crap the whole game, right? It is close to impossible to come back from that. Like your game is just over because, you know, even if you're a full trio, negative 500 or negative 400 if you've just been tagged a bunch of rotate, held, sprayed, whatever it may be, even if you take a 3v3 fight, that's 600 damage, right? Because there's no damage onto knocks, and so you wipe them. If you take 100 damage, you're still below.
You'll take it,
and you're gonna take, someone's gonna pump you once, you're gonna be below. So there's no comeback mechanic, and that's why I think having some sort of like positive surge on elimination or some priority for each elimination, something like that, I think is probably the easiest way to do it. So, you know, if you have 1 elim, you already count as more damage than everyone with 0. And then, or if you have 2, you're already doing more damage than everyone with 1. Then if you're below surge, you're like, we got to get active. We got to jump in a fight. We got to get you know, there's rewards for actually like getting eliminations then. Whether that actually plays out in a tournament properly, obviously that's another thing I think would be great to test. We'd actually see what it looks like, because in theory, all these things are great. When you actually see it in a tournament, it's very different. To me, I think that's probably the best thing. Or you just get 200-300 surge every time you get a kill or elimination as well. You know, like I think those things add up too. There's problems with that as well. There's problems with everything, but I think it'll be the final solution will probably be just like, what is the least problematic version? Because a lot of this, we've got to remember, is basically just for grand finals. Like a lot of these same things we're talking about don't matter that much for the vast majority of people. Obviously for Div Cup finals and the set lobbies, you know, will matter a bit more there. But for the average people playing like a solo Cash Cup game, like they're not going to really notice the difference between old Surge and this too much, right? There's enough solo Cash Cup, right?
Right. But that's also why I think it's like what they do has to be really well thought out, because really, right, you're talking about grand finals there, like that's like the the product of FNCS, right? And so, you know, my concern is always, as a broadcaster, this needs to be something that isn't difficult to explain to someone who has no understanding of Fortnite, right? Like this has to be somewhat intuitive to where like people get it and they're like, oh, cool, yeah, of course that makes sense, you know. So I don't really care what they do, as long as it makes the mid games more entertaining and it removes the incentive for people to collude, which is what has been going on for quite some time now. But I was just gonna say, I'm just happy they're trying shit. You know, we've been asking for them for ages to try something. So
yeah, it's funny you say like you want it to be like intuitive and like very easy to explain, when like it is the most confusing thing apparently for every single person in the Fortnite community to understand how this storm surge works. Because again, like I think I've said the word threshold about 500 times this week. Like people don't realize that number that you do isn't the number that's on the right side of your screen. That's a different number. You know,
they do some UI changes with us too. Like
like if they can find, is that a pickle? Oh no, it's a Madeline. It looks like you're eating a Okay, it looks like the pickle is green. Like if what they could do to make it a little bit more intuitive, like maybe Storm Surge shouldn't be a threshold on how many teams die, but it's like, okay, you have to get to this number. And because of the pure math of the lobby, at some point people are gonna die because they're below that specific number, right? Because it's math. So like you could say, in order to be above first, what was that funny?
It's just because the way you're like, it's math.
It's math. Oh my god! But it's true though, right? Like you can make it so much more intuitive if you just do, okay, for a second zone surge, you need to be 50 damage above the threshold, you know, and the 50 damage above. More 50 damage, less than 50, you know, and the next zone it's 100, then 150, because it's gonna change. Like people are just gonna die, and like you don't need to have these specific thresholds because those thresholds were made specifically because that's what the server could handle, right? The server can handle 70 players alive in fourth zone, can handle 40 players alive, you know, whatever. So in the new format, just having it that, okay, you need to be 100 above, which means by definition, the math means that, you know, let's say you can do the math or whatever. 10 people in the lobby will die if it's 100 above at some thresholds, and then if it's 200 above, then, you know, that I think would be probably a better way to do it than making it a threshold, because people still don't understand the fucking word threshold, man. It's math.
I've actually got a better idea. I think
for sure,
I'm gonna fuck myself.
The teams, your idea is shit. Sorry, the teams who are at the bottom two, when you're below the thresholds, you just teleport them into like a 2v2 box fight.
Gulag.
Yeah, it's like a box fight gulag, and there's like a minute timer, and whoever wins, they get to go back into the game.
It's also just a random teammate as well. You know, it's not like both. It's one person in the duo.
But you know what's funny? Honestly, that would be banger. You know, they've stolen BR mechanics from other BRs for years, but they never stole the gulag. You know, we need a Fortnite gulag. Put all the fucking teams who are fucking below, you know, at like some of the earlier thresholds, just chuck them in an arena. And it's like, it gets smaller. Yeah, it's just fucking put them in a zone wall and it just gets smaller. You just got to fucking, if you survive, you're still in the game, you know?
Do you imagine it's just like pro zonies with like 8 teams who are below?
Yeah, let's just skip the whole mid game. You know, we don't have to watch all them fuckers boxing up in places. Let's go to the battle arena and see what they do in there.
What do you think you've not proposed?
I honestly,
have an idea?
I stopped trying to theorize about Surge. Like I stopped a long time ago. Like it's so long ago.
Every idea has been said on this.
Yeah, like everybody says everything, and there's always some sort of like caveat as to why XYZ thing doesn't work. The only things that are important to me are, like I said, it just has to be intuitive enough to where it's not, like Fortnite is already such a complicated game to understand for like, it's, you know, it's not an easy watching experience for someone who doesn't have much context of Fortnite. Even if you do, even you could have been playing Fortnite for years, watch an FNCS lobby and be like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is going on? You know? So if on top of that, like one of the core mechanics that determines how games flow and go, if that's too complicated, if it's any more complicated than it already is now, because I'd argue now it's already too complicated for what I'm talking about, then that, even if it fixes the problem, it would also get like a somewhat thumbs down from me in that it just like we're making a different problem that's maybe less problematic in some ways, but more in others. So,
and I think that's where all these suggestions of AR should do half damage or damage only count at 200 meters. That's where these ideas really fall apart. Anytime I've read some of these suggestions, I just kind of like move them on because I'm like there's just no practical application for that in a game, really.
How would that go? Like, think about that. How would that go? Like on like global championships, fucking. Game 11, they're trying to break down what the fucking comeback is. Like, oh, he's up above Surge now. Fucking, his shotgun did 22% less damage than the other guys, and it's like, we're just fucked at this point,
Yeah. The one thing, well, the main thing I will say though is, whilst we are changing Storm Surge, please change the Storm Surge UI to make it visible, not just above and below. Give us something, and you see that fucking thing. I know you guys have not played Storm Surge games long. Maybe Boop has on Middle East don't have Storm Surge. Right? Yeah. No, in a long time, right? But when the warnings pop up at the top middle of your screen, the big Storm Surge warning
doesn't go
covers
away,
so much of your screen. So like if you're sitting over a peak, trying to look down over the top, half of your bloody screen's gone because that Storm Surge warning. So yeah, get rid of that, please. And I'm gonna DM. I need to DM some from Epic about that while they're doing it, because
on top of improving the UI for players, whatever you guys do to change Surge, please add that UI to the spectator client in like an advanced way so that spectators can make it easier for people to understand what the fuck is going on.
Imagine having a list of everyone that was below Surge. You just pop on the screen like that. Like, bro, okay. It would help the broadcast team as well to know exactly who to look at, because they.
Yes, bro. I for the longest time was just like, with the current system, we should be able to see how much damage people have done.
Yeah.
Like, because that, like, think about how much context that gives you, right? Like of what a team is going to do in any given moment in the early game can be determined by whether they have damage or not. If you don't know whether they have damage or not, you're like guessing what they're going to do because you don't know what's important to them right now. So, yes,
they already have that kind of stuff built in where if you're in replays, you just press F8 and the whole live leaderboard pops up and no one ever uses it ever. But it shows you all their HP on that. All you need to do is do the same thing, and it's just all the players, and then it's their damage, and there's just a line, and that's where the threshold is for teams, and then it just moves.
That'd be very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Shout out to Epic for trying to fix Storm Surge. Leave your terrible Storm Surge suggestions in the comments, because they won't be terrible, but I still want to read them. Like, I know they'll be bad.
They make shotguns worth more damage. Stop. Don't type that one. That doesn't work. Because motherfuckers would just sit there going like this. Poop, poop, poop. We got a Surge, boys. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with us this week. We will be back next week. I did try line up an interview for last week's ep, and it did not happen. So we're gonna try get that sorted, and hopefully we can have a chat with some interesting players. If there's anyone you want to see us interview, let us know in the comments. But Fortnite players, schedules and whatnot.
I think they want us to interview Coach Harry.
That'd be great, right? Imagine if we could get Coach Harry on this podcast, man. That'd be
doesn't even respond to the Discord group.
Doesn't even respond to my messages. But when Football Manager updates drop, he'll be the first person to DM me, fucking sending me links of YouTube videos to watch and shit. But there you go. Shout out to Coach Harry. What are you guys up to this week? Got anything cool coming up? I know you've been hyping up this video you're working on, Reese.
I'm not hyping up. It's just every time we talk about something, it just becomes relevant to the storyline that's in it. Yeah.
Well, I'm hyped for today,
which is
yesterday.
I got it back from Nola. Yeah, I need to finish editing it or look through it today. Once we finish recording this, so it'll be up by the time this podcast is live. That'll be done, and then just back to usual other stuff after that. More content, and more buying Pokemon cards.
Yeah, I know the same hustle boss, bro. Watching all the tournaments, all the things, and then we're going to Germany. Me, you,
we are going to Germany. Yes,
we're going to Hamburg. We're going to be on a couch holding hands together, watching some solo Fortnite.
Can't wait. We've been doing live FNtasia episodes, and people have been missing them with our viewing party streams. We'll have another one on the weekend, right? On the 10th,
Friday.
So
Friday,
Friday,
yeah.
So if you want to watch all three of us watch a Fortnite tournament together, you can do that, I guess.
If you have been watching, what does BB stand for? You know, you can figure it out. That's it. Yeah,
Okay.
they know. Levin doesn't even know. See,
I don't know either.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
I'm looking forward to that line. I think that line's gonna be a lot of fun, especially because they didn't get invited out to globals. You know, so
right. All right. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Peace.